Good evening. I will now call the Monday, March 6, 2023 regular town council meeting to order. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is the approval of the memorandum of the February 6, 2023 regular town council meeting. The copy has been posted. Are there any questions from councilors?
Did we not approve it last meeting because it wasn't ready yet? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're back to back.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve.
First by Councilor Garrett, second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next would be the approval of the memorandum of the February 13th, 2023 regular town council meeting. Again, a copy has been posted there as well. Any questions from councilors?
I'll make a motion to approve.
First by Councilor Garrett,
I'll second again.
second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is the approval of the March 6, 2023 claims. Are there any questions from councilors?
Was there a claim last time that we paused? Has that issue been resolved? I think that was Councilor Trailer's concern.
I actually noticed that, I think it's back on here, claim to Ice Miller Consulting for legal fees for $2,473.50. Is that the same one from last time that was? So that the $3,000 one then is not back on here, but there's a $2,400 one that's also for consulting. Is that, are we now in like a, is this their retainer or is there a contract? Is there, what are we doing with Ice Miller?
All I know is that they help us out with some of the cyber security issues and the different policies and stuff like that for the cyber security. That's the one thing that I know that they use them for. I would have to grab the agreement to let you know what the rest of it is.
Yeah. Are there questions about any other expenses on the claim sheet?
Yeah, I have a couple questions that I just wanted to touch base with. One of them might actually be to the fire chief, but while you're here, the Hussey Mayfield Public Library, I saw on there on these claims, we have like $1,086.40 for Perry Township library cards. And I'm just curious, is that for a month or is that for the entire year? Or when did?
It's not a month, but it's not a year. I'd have to look just to make sure, but I want to say maybe it's like quarterly or every 6 months.
Is it quarterly?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can get an answer for you.
How many constituents out there are actually getting library
Sure.
cards? I guess I can ask the, well, I guess I can't really ask Perry Township. I'm sorry, Hussey Mayfield Library. They probably don't know that answer. So anyway, I kind of wanted to clarify.
Mhm.
Yeah, that should be easy to find though.
Yeah, I can find out.
Yeah.
I'll pull the claim and see what it is.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. What is the $3,689 for the mayor's catering for breakfast?
That's for the women's breakfast that she's having on Thursday, but I do know that 3,000 of that, she did get a donation from Rundell Ernstberger.
Oh, cool.
So if she got a donation,
Yeah, why is it showing up on here?
why are we paying the claim that?
Because it would have to be appropriated and we just got the check. So she's paying it through her promotions and it gets receipted back. The check we just got gets receipted back in through the general fund in her department. But we can't put it to a line unless it's appropriated.
One other quick question was about the Perry Township Volunteer Fire contract. It looks like it says second quarter, 22,500. I assume we pay that 4 times a year.
That is correct,
Total
sir.
90, somewhere around 90,000 annually for that. Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's really all I had. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Cindy, do you know why the $3,000 that we took off the last claims is not on this claims? I'm assuming it has not been paid, correct? It's just Are you still waiting on more information to give us more information?
Honestly, with not having an AP person right now, I think it was just probably overlooked. So-
But it has not been paid,
No,
correct? Okay,
no.
because it's not been approved yet. I think, I
Correct.
know Counselor Trailer was looking for some information there.
Yes.
You also made mention on and this is just semantics, not trying to pick on this, the breakfast, you said it needs to be appropriated, but it's not appropriated because it's in the budget, right? We're just approving the budget item. We're not approving an additional appropriation in this process.
Right, you're approving the payment, which I'm assuming is coming out of her promotions line that was already
Right.
budgeted for. We just can't turn around and put that 3,000 right back into that line without appropriating
And
it.
I assume the donation goes back into the same line item. correct.
It goes back into the same fund and department. We cannot put it into a line item unless we come before you and do an additional appropriation.
Got it. Okay.
One
Thank
more
you.
question.
Yes.
And I promise I had it written down. 15.5 Incorporated. And it says final billing for Amplify. I have it for, it's like 13,442.59. Just was curious what 15.5 Incorporated.
Oh, is that you? Already.
Thank you.
Amplify was purchased by 15.5. Amplify is what we do with them is employee surveys. And so it was budgeted under Amplify, and now 15.5 is the organization.
All right.
Are we still doing those surveys?
We did one recently for a department, but we're
Okay.
not doing them for the entire town.
Is that because of budget reasons or is there a reason why we're not doing the whole?
It's because of a lot of things, and happy to talk about that offline if you want to, but
Okay, we can do that.
I would make the point, and this has come up before, if it's not a budgetary restriction, I do believe we should be surveying all folks within the town, because it's hard to get a baseline when you do one department and you don't do everybody else. It's just, you're kind of looking at one piece of data and it's hard to correlate it across the board. So if you're inclined, or if you need more money, please come to us, because I think we should be doing that almost on an annual basis.
thank you.
Any other questions from counselors?
No.
I would, in similar fashion to the last one, until we get an explanation on this consulting deal with Ice Miller, I mean, I would make a motion to approve claims with the exception of the 2473.50 legal fee consulting to Ice Miller.
Second that.
Second by Counselor Garrett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is the mayor administration update. We did not get an update from the administration in the packet. So moving along would be a town council update. Are there any updates from councilors?
I would like to give a short update. I especially like to thank our amazing Zionsville Fire Department for allowing myself and some other members of the council to attend this year's awards banquet, which was this last weekend. I know a lot of the folks on the crew watch these council meetings, so I hope you are. It'd be nice to give you a few extra props. An incredible night. There were a lot of powerful stories and a lot of awards that were given out. I would just like to call out and celebrate what I thought were the top 5 award winners that night. And I think this has since been shared on social media, but it's an incredible group. We're all very blessed to have the ZFD supporting and protecting us. But firefighter of the year, Sean Mitchell; EMT of the year, Evan Laddie; paramedic of the year, Anthony Ammerman; probationary firefighter of the year, Raymond Klein; and the big award, local 5195 leadership award to Matt Quigley. So just congrats to the guys who won these awards. And there were a number of other awards that were just way too many people to list in terms of life-saving award and just some really powerful stories. And so just props to ZFD for the incredible work that you do for Zionsville.
I would agree. It was a great night. I actually skipped the request to speak. Amy, were there any requests to speak for agenda items?
No, I have not received any.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other updates from counselors? Up next would be first item on old business, which is a consideration of a veto override of an ordinance amending the traffic code for the town of Zionsville. This was our golf cart ordinance. Are there any questions or discussion from counselors?
I mean, I've got nothing but support for this stuff. I know the mayor has vetoed it and given some rationale. I'm not going to break it down piece by piece as to why I disagree with it, but I'm still supportive of doing this.
Yeah, I didn't receive one email in support of the veto all week, so.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
So on ordinance 2023-04, that is the ordinance for the golf cart, right? So in there, it says something as it's naming as it's renaming the streets that are eliminated. Is there another place that it says Michigan Road also? Because I didn't see it say Michigan Road on there specifically as one of the streets that.
Yeah, so the ordinance complies with state and local and county ordinances, and you can't drive a golf cart on a state road, state
Because it's
highway.
a state road, it's not a town
Right.
road. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then the other one was just language that I was kind of just trying to work around as well, talking about an operator. Should it say a permitted operator? But I think it's pretty cut and dry when it starts with explaining what is permitted. So I'm okay with the language. I just wanted to touch base on the Michigan Road thing because it was talked about town streets. And I believe that, like, I agree with that, it should be a state road. So I'm ready for you to move forward, or I can make a motion.
Well, are there any other questions from counselors or any other comments?
I mean, I guess the only other comment I would make is, the veto kind of caught me by surprise because I hadn't received any communication of any raised concerns. We heard this on first reading. We heard it on second reading. There was no testimony at all against it. And then, kind of ninth inning, last batter, all of a sudden there's a veto with some rationale. And I would just encourage in the future, if the mayor or the administration has concerns about a piece of legislation that we're considering, I'm very much here to hear what those concerns are. And I didn't hear those until after the fact. And I've given it a lot of attention, thought about it, listened to it. And I would just encourage that we can, probably accommodate, some of these questions or help walk through some of this on the front end. And I would just continue to encourage proactivity of dialogue.
Sure.
And that's the same thing that I'm coming from is that, in her veto statement, she talks about how this is very concerning to those administrators in the police department, public works, town administration, yet we had not heard from, between first and second reading of this, never heard a word from anybody about concerns. So.
Any other questions or comments from council? I would make a motion to override the veto of ordinance 2023-04.
Second.
Second by Councilor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next on old business is a consideration of a veto override of an ordinance establishing the position of the director and deputy director of finance and records and reestablishing the position of municipal relations coordinator for the town of Zionsville. This is ordinance 2023-05. Are there any questions from councilors?
I do have a question really for Heather. I read a few different times the mayor's reply to us and Heather's initial reply, went back through the minutes of the last meeting, reread the reorganization document myself. And I think we asked this, Heather, even in the last meeting, I don't know if it was Jason or I know it was asked because there had been maybe some concern raised before we voted the second time, unlike on the golf course ordinance. And I think the question to you was, you've looked at this as our council. Are we in compliance with the reorganization documents of this town to pass this, or is there a risk of us violating this by passing it? I'm comfortable with it. That's why I voted yes last time, but the issue was raised again, and I'm just making sure you can help explain that to folks so that we feel like we're all prepared to vote accordingly.
Yeah, so do you want me to go through both pieces? I know I've
Yes.
also shared this memo, which I believe was made public for anybody in the town. So I was trying to explain this to Counselor Melton before, so I'll try to maybe do it more articulately than I did before the meeting. So yes, I believe the answer is yes, that we are in compliance with state law as well as within compliance within the reorganization documents. So there were two concerns that the mayor raised in her memo that she prepared prior to second reading and then distributed to council leadership and to the members of the town council. So the first deals with approval of job descriptions, which is not something we have historically done at the town council meeting. And I want to share where that was generated from when we had a audit interview with the Indiana State Board of Accounts, and they talked about our sort of checks and balances and internal controls for the town. One of the points that was raised is that we weren't approving job descriptions. And that was a comment that we later explored with the State Board of Accounts. And then prior to me presenting this memo to you, I again followed up with the State Board of Accounts to understand and confirm. The State Board of Accounts has indicated that because you set the salary ordinance and because you appropriate the funds for the positions in which you're funding as part of the salary ordinance, that you should be reviewing and approving the job descriptions, because that is ultimately what you are funding for each, position within the town. It is clear as mud sometimes with the reorganization when you try to unwind, the various aspects of what was town law prior to the reorganization documents with the reorganization documents and moving forward. But if you go back and sort of look at how the powers were vested, and I tried to articulate that path for everyone in the memo, there really is still, I think, the conclusion that the town council should be approving the job descriptions unless the town council decides to take some other affirmative action to vest that power in someone else to do that job. And you do have that authority. So if you want to go back and work with the administration, to do that, and you can always come back in and amend this. So there's nothing that's wedding us to that, except that somebody needs to be responsible for that task. And the State Board of Accounts has recommended that be the town council. So that's where that piece is generated from. The second piece is more confusing or convoluted, I would say. When we passed, if you go back, I guess I'm going to go back even further. Before reorganization, the town council had vested some of the administrative duties in the town manager, which is a position in a town without a reorganization that can, manage certain duties at the direction of the town council. In a traditional town, you don't have a mayor. And so we are not a city and we don't have all the city statutes or powers. We have still town powers, except what is embedded into the reorganization document. So you sort of fall back to those town powers. And in those town powers, the town council could delegate certain powers to the town manager. We also had an elected position of clerk treasurer. A clerk treasurer, as an elected individual, has clerk duties, which are duties directly responsible to the town council and the town council president to administer the business of the town council. And then you have the treasurer duties of the town, which are financial reports, making sure the claims are presented for council approval, making sure the town's finances are budgeted, that you go through the budgeting process, etc. The spirit of the Government Modernization Act was that in order to complete a reorganization, you could not add elected officials. You had to eliminate elected officials or at least retain the same number of elected officials. And then you could vest powers into different, positions in the town or move powers around, but you couldn't add an additional elected official. So in order for the reorganization to create the position of mayor, the reorganization took what was then the elected clerk treasurer and vested all of those duties with the mayor. And then in the reorganization, it clearly states that those clerk treasurer duties were then taken from the mayor, and it says it shall be vested in the director of the Department of Finance and Records, which is a department head. So if you can follow that. So then we had the position of the director of Department of Finance and Records at the beginning of Mayor Hawk's administration, really Mayor Papa, then Mayor Hawk. And that was a department head, and that department head was then subject to the requirements that for removal of a department head, the town council had to approve. So then with Mayor Styron's administration, recommended to the town council that we eliminate the position of Director of Department of Finance and Records and create a new position of Chief Financial Officer for the town. That was done in the salary ordinance in 2020, I believe. So in that position, it then created a new position of Municipal Relations Coordinator. And it took the clerk treasurer duties and kept the treasurer duties with the Chief Financial Officer of the town, and separated the clerk duties, and those are now vested in the Municipal Relations Coordinator. So is everybody tracking okay? Because it's very difficult. So then we in December of last year, the town council, as part of the salary ordinance process, decided to eliminate the position of Chief Financial Officer and reestablish in the salary ordinance, which is just the funding for the positions, the position of Director of Finance and Records and Deputy Director of Finance and Records. But we did not create any legislative framework for those positions. We did not restore those positions in law. We just created the positions for funding purposes. So you may recall then we had Joe Peel come back, and she presented the job descriptions for the director and deputy director, which are largely just taken verbatim and included in this ordinance. But we could not go back into a legislative framework, in my opinion, to establish these two positions without creating public transparency of what we were doing as a town with respect to the position of Municipal Relations Coordinator. And while we love Amy, this has nothing to do with Amy. This is just trying to make sure that if you're a member of the public 20 years from now, or you're trying to administer all of this, in the future, that you could follow where the duties were and where the duties were vested. So if we did not put in this position of Municipal Relations Coordinator into this same ordinance, it would appear to me to create confusion, because if you're just looking at the reorg, it would appear that all of the clerk treasurer duties were now back vested with the position of the director of the Department of Finance and Records, which is not the intent. And so we added back into this ordinance that you're considering this position of Municipal Relations Coordinator. The only thing that is different, or that we, I think, provided more clarity to, because we really not had any sort of legislative policy around the position of Municipal Relations Coordinator, is a clarification that since that position is serving as the clerk for the town council and reporting to the town council president in that position, that there be coordination between the duties that are performed for this body and the duties that are performed for the mayor's administration, both of which have, equal importance within the job that position is now vested to do, because they have two sets of duties to the town. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a participation in job performance evaluations, that there was, input from the town council president, which would again reflect, the comments from the town council in those job performances, and then there was coordination between the town council president, whoever is serving in that role, and the director of human resources. The other thing is we wanted to follow the spirit of the reorganization, which was that position could not just be eliminated without some sort of town council approval, which we vested in town council president in this ordinance. Because without that position, the duties of the town council cannot really be performed, because this is performing the clerk duties, which if you go back to the very beginning, when you vest in town, when you go back to those town statutes that I was talking about before the reorganization, you can vest certain responsibilities and the management of the town employees in a town manager. That town manager by statute does not have any powers over the elected clerk treasurer. It is independent elected. So you follow that line of thinking, which is why they had protected powers as the department head, and those powers transferred to the director of Department of Finance and Records, because you have two different sets of statutory powers that have to be performed. And so we wanted to make sure that, you know, any mayor, and this is not, again, this is not about Amy, this is not about Mayor Siren, this is that we had one clearly delineated where those powers now set within the town, and that they were clearly articulated. And then two, that you would never have a situation where that position would be eliminated and the business of the council could not be conducted, because you need that check and balance, you know, on the powers of government to make sure the government continues to run with transparency and, you know, effectively with the executive branch and the legislative branch. So that's kind of the reasoning of why we got to this position. I know that was a long-winded explanation, but it's very complicated, and I apologize for that. I tried to keep it as clear as possible, but that's kind of following the line of powers all the way down to where we are today, which is half of them are vested now in the position that Cindy Poor has, and half of them are vested in the municipal relations coordinator, and we need both to be articulated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Thank you. Obviously, you know, this position has been divvied up essentially into almost 3 different roles.
Correct.
Now, right, between the mayor, finance records, and clerk. Those are all very well spelled out. So we're kind of going back, obviously, and we were really accommodating the mayors and Joe as well, who wanted to move away from the CFO. So that, I think that was clear that we're working together to try to fix what the town thinks is the best approach moving forward around our finance department. Did we essentially go back to, sounds like what you're saying is we went back to the language that existed before the CFO was created, but in fact, we're cleaning it up even more because in your opinion, it wasn't clear that the MRC position needed some more clarity as the former clerk, or at least in that role with the town council. And is it of your opinion then that there's some statutory protection for the MRC as a quote department head?
Yeah, so they're not a department head, and we didn't make them such in this ordinance. But what we tried to do is give a similar protection to ensure that a person just can't be eliminated, so that we don't have a situation where that those duties are not being performed, which I think is very much within not only the spirit of where the reorganization originally intended them to be and have that protection, because it never contemplated that we would split those duties out of the Department of Finance and Records.
Yes.
But in the reorg, it does allow for the mayor to make recommendations to restructure the, you know, government departments, but it requires town council approval to do that. So again, you know, that's still vested with the town council to make a decision as to how those restructuring occurs. So now that you're kind of going back to the beginning, but you're not vesting all the powers back, which was the mayor's original recommendation, was to vest the clerk powers in the municipal relations coordinator. It felt like we have to articulate those 3 things together, because if you just do the positions separately, it's going to leave a gap in who is responsible for certain important functions of the town and that clerk treasurer responsibility. And those are statutorily driven requirements that, I mean, they're shall language, they're not may language. It says the clerk treasurer shall do this and they shall do that, because those are sort of the critical functions of a town, right? Making sure your town council can run and making sure you have finances and transparency within the financial structure. So delineating those out more clearly, I think, is really important. And those powers were not vested in the mayor. Just to be clear, they were vested in the mayor and then immediately transferred to the position of the director of Department of Finance and Records. So the mayor definitely has oversight as, you know, the mayor, right, of all the different departments, and continues that we're not impeding upon that structure, I don't believe. So.
No, it's very, very helpful. And of course, we count on your expertise to help us with this. And I don't think we'd feel confident moving forward if we didn't have your support and your explanation. So I very much appreciate all that you're bringing to help us with this.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions or comments from councilors?
I would make a motion to override the mayor's veto for ordinance 2023-05.
Got a first by Counselor Garrett. I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next in old business is a consideration of an ordinance establishing an opioid fund. This is ordinance 2023-06. This is a final reading. Cindy's certainly here to answer any questions if we have them. I don't know that it's just opening up accounts so that we can accept the money from the settlements. So, right? Yeah.
This is the first reading?
It's the second reading. Questions from councilors? Otherwise, I would make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-06 on final reading. Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is new business. The first item on new business is a consideration of an ordinance amending the 2023 salary ordinance. This is a first reading. This is ordinance 2023-07. We have HR Director Joe Keel and Fire Chief Van Gorder to present, or maybe just Fire Chief Van Gorder.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I'll come before you this evening for a request of a salary ordinance amendment. And there also was included a job description for your review and consideration. The 2023 Fire Department approved budget included one additional fire inspector position. After reviewing the workloads and future planned retirements of our fleet service manager, we concluded that this one position would better serve the fire department by adding a fleet mechanic. Therefore, we come before you this evening, ask for a revision within the salary ordinance and creating the fleet mechanic position and a corresponding job description. This new position would be funded within our 2023 budget, so it does not require any additional funds. And actually, it is a lowering of the salaries, so it would provide a savings to the organization. One may ask how we plan to accomplish those needs that we originally needed from our fire inspectors. And we have worked with the HR department to develop a program where we would hire off-duty firefighters to participate in the inspection program in a part-time role at a different pay rate, therefore allowing us to save some additional funds and also allow some firefighters to gain some additional job experience in a field that they're not familiar with and maybe allow us a little depth of bench for future succession planning. Be more than happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Chief, you said that this doesn't require any additional appropriations. Where is this funding coming from? What was it earmarked for previously?
Yes, within the salary ordinance, there was a line item for inspector. We have one already contained within the budget. Was a second inspector, so it was a doubling of the salary. So originally we were approved for the fire inspector position. Make sure I'm not crossing the lines. You'll see on that page that the fire inspector's maximum salary is $75,461. So that's what's included in the budget. Creating this other position allows us position at 55, a maximum salary of $55,000. So therefore they would not be spending any of those additional funds.
Thank you.
You think, obviously you think 55 is good, but I'm a little concerned that, I mean, that's the whole fleet of life safety vehicles.
Yeah, we're very blessed to have a fleet maintenance chief, Mel Vla, who's been with the department a very long time, but it's one of the things we talked about and I got his permission to share this evening. He's within about 3 years of retiring. So if we could take the opportunity and hire an entry-level mechanic, the hope is that maybe this individual will be able to grow within the organization, may or may not be able to replace him completely. But at that time, we'd also be able to have, instead of just one person taking care of the fleet, we'd actually have 2 people. We're currently experiencing a high volume of, we call them official reports or work orders for maintenance items. And we've talked during the budget time, you remember, that are also purchasing fire trucks nowadays has changed significantly with the supply chain issue. So while we've been approved and we appreciate that funding, we're going through the specification and purchasing process now. And we won't see those new fire trucks for at least 2, now possibly 3 years. So we're anticipating our maintenance needs to increase significantly.
So do you do all, does Mel do all the maintenance maintenance repairs in the firehouses?
That is correct. About 90% of our fleet service repairs are done in-house.
Okay. Every time I see him at Lowe's, I ask him, who you training? Who's the next that's going to do your job? And so this is really great to see that you guys are planning ahead and given that position. And I'm all for this. So
Chief, this is a first reading. Is there time sensitivity to this to try to get this done now relative to what you need to accomplish, or can this go through 2 meetings?
The original request did not include that, but as everybody's aware, the hiring market right now is a little bit of a challenge. So if the council felt comfortable, we would like to be able to move forward and do it in 1 read, we could.
I have all 7.
We don't have all 7.
Oh, we need all
it.
7 to
Sorry,
move-
sorry,
yeah,
I'll-
to
yeah.
suspend the rules.
Yes, we
Got
do.
it.
Blame
So we'll see you,
trailer.
Sorry.
You could blame trailer.
that's right. We'll see you at the next meeting.
I certainly appreciate the memo, by the way. This is helpful to get, the documents in advance so you understand what's going on and that makes it, makes it easier. So. Any other questions from counselors?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-07. First reading.
Second.
First by Counselor Melton, second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a consideration of a resolution establishing a crosswalk location. This is Ford Road and Starkey Avenue. This is resolution 2023-05, and we have DPW Director Lance.
Good evening. With that opening statement, you've covered a lot of my information. I gave to you the fall of 2021 and explained that we had developed an in-house rating system for locations as the public asked both staff and administration and the Pedestrian Mobility Advisory Committee to consider marked crosswalk locations. We took some counts at this location. And we time those counts when the weather is good and school is in session to get a maximum idea of usage. And so having run all the traps and passed all the ratings evaluations, I'm bringing this forward to you with a favorable recommendation.
Lance, is it a 4-way crosswalk?
This is only a marked crosswalk across Ford Road,
Across Ford Road.
just north of Starkey.
And this will come through, Lance, you mentioned in the memo that we're going to have an $8,600 appropriation request. That's going to be later. Is that right?
That's correct. Ideally, we would have liked to have had the timing be simultaneous, which is what we did with the first round, which established the crosswalk on 975. But with all of the work that our finance department is doing, we thought we'd wait and hold off on that a little bit, not bury it in a resolution for additional appropriations and let it be a special item.
Appreciate that.
Well, I'm okay with it since it's in my district and my neighborhood, so thank you.
You may take all the credit.
Yes.
Worked
You
really hard
did
on that,
this.
didn't you?
You know what? If I was running for District 4, I'd start taking credit for this.
Lance, is the 86,000, is that just?
8,600.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shit.
I was gonna say. like,
I'll go
you
get
guys-
some paint.
You can always add a 0 if you like.
Yeah, you gotta explain that one a
It's
little
gold
bit.
paved.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I heard that wrong. But I wrote it down.
Any other questions for Lance? I'll make a motion to, let's see, this resolution. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-05.
Second.
Second by Counselor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Coming in the home stretch. Up next is a consideration of a resolution regarding the appropriation of additional funds. This is for police vehicles. This is resolution 2023-06. We have Cindy and I guess we'll have Cindy for now. and Captain Sterling maybe too.
Yes, this additional appropriation, I don't know if you recall that they were planning to purchase some vehicles towards the end of last year and thought there was some money already appropriated, but that wasn't the case. So they had to spend some of their budget from this year to purchase those vehicles, and now they're needing to purchase vehicles for this year. So that's what the additional appropriation is for. And we decided to look at using the special Lowit distribution fund, which we received in 2017. The money's kind of been sitting there, and this is perfect type of expense for it, a one-time capital purchase.
Cindy, my memory may be going, but I could have sworn we appropriated those dollars too. I thought that Chief Spears had, or maybe Captain Sterling had identified cars that we could have bought last year before the price went up, and we had approved that purchase and appropriated those funds. Like, I thought we went through all the process.
I did too. That's what I
Why?
was kinda wondering.
It was for the equipment for the cars, because they were told that there was money already appropriated for the actual cars. Correct me if I'm wrong, Drake. But there was not. And so since the cars were ordered, they had to use part of this year's budget for that purchase. And so now they're needing to order this year's cars.
So the better deal that police found is still being honored because we purchased them. We
Correct.
just need to back into what is. I got it.
Correct.
Okay.
So we ordered them, now we're paying for them. Is that,
We paid for them. We got to pay for other stuff we already expected to pay for in the future.
but I thought we were ordering them and it didn't require,
We've got one set of cars in already.
Okay.
That was the initial order.
Correct.
And
Was-
then-
Was there, Cindy, you and I had a conversation a while back about two sets of vehicles. Is this the vehicles that were anticipated to be ordered that you didn't expect to come in this soon? Is that what this was?
I don't know that it was necessarily, we didn't expect them to come in this soon. It's just that I know that when Drake had a conversation with the CFO at the time, they were told that there were appropriated dollars that would cover that expense, and there actually weren't. So they had to, since those cars, they were told that, they ordered the cars came in, so they had to use some of this year's budget for those, and which brought them short for this year's set of cars.
So at the end of last calendar year, the Lowit Fund had $432,956 in it. Has there been any significant expenditures?
There's been no.
Shouldn't have been any.
expenditures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that.
Okay. And then
And
can
they-
we, the Lowit, I know we went through this a little bit last year, but the Lowit Special Distribution Fund has specific criteria it can be used for, correct? Can we walk through that briefly? Is that?
Well, I can tell you, Heather could probably be more specific, but for capital expenditures, which this being a one-time capital expenditure purchase of cars is like a perfect case scenario for this money. As far as anything specific past that, I don't know, Heather or Tim.
It's all right. I guess I just
Yeah,
want to
just
make sure
think
this
it- yeah, just think
qualifies.
about capital expenditures or expenditures supporting police and fire, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the easy way to think of it.
So Cindy, again, just so
Yes.
we're on the same path. And this is what I must be thinking, November 2nd, we appropriated $65,698. That was for the equipment for the cars, not for the cars themselves, because you had been told the
Correct.
cars had already been ordered. Had you not thought the cars had been ordered and had come to this counselor for the appropriation, I would like to think it would have been approved then anyways. So this is more of a
And I will say
clerical
that
thing than anything
we've
else.
been able to encumber some funds. They did have some funds left over from last year, and then they did still have some funds left over from their budget. The total cost of the cars is around, was it 253 or 258, something like that. And so, we are able to compensate a little bit with those funds.
I guess the only thought I have, happy to support it. I agree, we would have supported it in a previous budget. It's a pretty salty price tag. I know we've done a lot of work and we've talked a lot about ARPA dollars kind of as one-time expenses and a lot of that around public safety. I mean, I'm happy to support this, but I just wonder if that's not something we should look at as part of an ARPA fund and not necessarily have to do this through general funds.
Well, I feel like the Lowit Fund
It's similar.
similar, but I feel like we've got less restrictions with the ARPA than we do this Lowit Fund. Right? I mean, so it makes sense I think it likely makes sense.
Just with
to
the
do
ARPA,
this.
you would have to come put together a
Reestablish a plan
plan and so forth. And so it'd be a little bit more time consuming. As far as time wise, I don't know that we have
Yeah.
this time anyway. But of course, the cars are on rotation, so possibly for next year.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions for Cindy or Captain Sterling?
I'll make a motion to approve if there are no questions.
First by Counselor Garrett, second by Counselor Culp.
Public hearing.
Oh, it is. a public
Cancel.
hearing.
I withdraw my motion until the public hearing.
All right, very good. This is a public hearing. I approve publication of the public notice of the public hearing. If there is any member from the public who would like to comment, public hearing is open. No one would like to comment. Close the public hearing. All right.
Thanks, Heather. Now I'll make a motion to approve.
You want to second that?
Joe? Second.
First
Sorry, I was
by,
reading the ordinance. I was reading this.
first by Counselor Garrett, second by Counselor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last item, consideration of a resolution regarding the appropriation of additional funds. This is the non-DLGF portion. This is resolution 2023-07. Councilors, you'll recall this replaces resolution 2023-04 from the February 13th, 2023 meeting. Cindy?
Yes, initially, the original resolution had the non-DLGF funds on there that you see on this resolution, but also one from the park operating fund. And we decided, or you decided at that time, that you wanted those split out. So this, the one that you see before you now is just the non-DLGF funds that should have been budgeted during the budget process and were overlooked.
So Cindy, can you, I get non-DLGF, the funding and mechanism and whatnot. Talk to me though, like the town hall lease fund, right? So payments for this building makes sense. It's funded by the Oak Street TIF, Food and Bev, CCD and General Fund. Are any of those components of those revenues recognized in the approved budget? Does that make sense? Like, in other words, is $200,000 coming out of I'm just trying to get a sense of, by making a lease payment, are we putting the budget we approved in the red? Or is it being generated by things that were not included as revenue sources in the budget we approved, and therefore it is a non-issue related to the operating budget?
It's basically a non-issue related to the operating budget. These funds come in through the settlements twice a year. And other than one or two of them, it's specifically for that lease payment. And then we take care of transferring the money over.
So when we look at Food and Bev is a great example, right? When we look at, when we are in November, or even sooner, looking at revenue sources, Food and Bev is not considered a revenue source that is applied towards the operating budget, correct?
Right. It's not part of our, what you would call our DLGF budget, but we do usually go through and just so we have those numbers for you.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. I want to make sure we weren't taking revenue from there and then
Correct.
applying to non-DLGF.
Correct.
Most of these are pass-throughs or lease payments. Unsafe building fund, it sort of specifies what it's for. It says it's budgeted for expenses related to the unsafe building code. What does that mean?
Basically, well, the fund was approved through an ordinance quite some time ago, but it's only set up a matter of a couple years ago when we had to go through, and there was, we took it, was it the old PNC building? I think that we, and funds came in for the demolition of that building through code. And so at that point in time, we really just kind of put that budget in there if it's needed. I know last year we budgeted for it. Nothing was used out of it, so it just fell back into the fund. There are some code fees that do get put into that fund depending on what the situation is.
It's, yeah, and just if it's for any, like if there are violations of the building code and you get cited for those violations, those citations, those fines will get dumped into this fund.
Got it. So this is just allowing, this is setting up a $10,000 placement so that if something comes up, you don't have to come for an appropriation.
Correct.
Got it.
Any other questions from counselors? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
First by Counselor Choi,
I'll second.
second by Counselor Garrett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Military pause for emphasis there, huh? Up next on the agenda is other matters. Are there any counselors that have other matters they'd like to address?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Can we get Lance back up here real quick? You're not in trouble, I promise. I nailed my mailbox back in.
Man, I was already packing up.
So
What can I do for you?
I've had some people ask about the roundabout at Oak and 800. I was wondering if you could give us a quick update and timelines.
Yeah, the information general information is posted on the website.
Yep.
There'll be some preliminary construction activities beginning, but as of June 1, it is a planned 90-day closure while that intersection is reconstructed.
90-day closure on it, starting June 1.
Correct.
Complete closure.
Correct.
Is that like kind of big, so school's out? Is that?
Well, obviously 90 days is longer than the summer break,
Yeah, that's-
but rather than adjusting buses schedules in both the spring and the fall, we thought a one-time adjustment would be best.
I think that was probably smart, so. Thanks.
Okay, you bet.
Anything else from counselors?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well, I was going to say something.
Oh, sorry, Brad.
Folks may not know, this is Civic Learning Week. And mostly geared towards high school students, but I think probably a good reminder for all of us. And we may have some students that are watching the meeting. I hope so. Don't know. It's been a good meeting to watch, probably, in terms of just some education. We got to see a veto override, which is not all that common. I think I can count on one hand the vetoes that we've been brought to this council. Got to hear from Heather on a reorg, which is kind of a constitutional question for us, just really hashing out what's the legalities and the constitution of our town. And you got to see some real collaboration, I think, whereby department leadership, who I very much appreciate their partnership, came to us with 5 different proposals, 4 of which had a fiscal impact, and we passed all 5. And I know there's a perception out there that we don't always work well together, but in fact, that's not the case. The norm that we do work well together. And even on budgetary issues where you're coming with additional asks of revenue, we were able to accommodate that. So I hope folks watching, if they are, had some civic learning today. So just a statement. Sorry, Josh.
No. Can I adjourn? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. First by Counselor Garrett, second by President Plunkett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. in the Zionsville Town Hall Council Chambers. Final notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana Open Door Law.